Every month, the SCP Foundation database is updated. New entries, new containment procedures, new anomalies that someone, somewhere, decided were worth documenting and worth locking away. Most of them, the public will never see. These are the ones we found worth your attention. My name is not important. What matters is the dossier in front of me, and the fact that February 2026 was, by any reasonable metric, a strange month for the database. The entries filed this cycle range from the quietly unsettling to the kind of thing that earns an immediate Keter classification and a very short list of people cleared to read further. We'll be covering the best of them, the most creative, the most dangerous, the ones that, once you've read them, you'll understand why certain Foundation researchers request reassignment afterward. This is not a countdown. This is a briefing.
You have seen this tower before. Not this video. Not a photograph someone showed you. Not a film, not a painting, not a postcard from Cambridgeshire. Before this, you have been seeing it your entire life, at a frequency of approximately once every 2 minutes, and you have never once stopped to ask why, because it has always been there, the way your own heartbeat has always been there, and the things that have always been there don't tend to generate questions. A brick tower, several stories tall, lit from the upper left. You know it the way you know your own name. You know it better, possibly, because your name required learning and the tower did not. The tower was simply present. It has always been present. On April 23, 2021, it appeared in the noosphere, the shared cognitive and informational substrate of human consciousness, and has remained there ever since. It appeared in every human mind simultaneously. It has not left. The Foundation investigated. The Foundation researched. The Foundation did what the Foundation does, with full resources and institutional authority, and a file designated SCP-8518. They could not find the tower. Not because it hides. Not because it moves. Because it was never built. It does not exist anywhere in the physical world. It is only in here. Suppressing public knowledge of SCP-8518 has proven futile. This sentence is the containment strategy's entire first chapter. You cannot suppress knowledge of something that is already inside every human mind. You cannot administer amnestics to 8 billion people. You cannot issue a cover story for an image that predates the cover story that was already there when your agents woke up this morning, that will be there again in approximately 2 minutes whether they want it or not. The Foundation does not attempt to remove SCP-8518. The Foundation does not attempt to explain it away through standard disinformation channels. The Foundation's current strategy is, in the cleanest possible terms, a reframe. The current containment strategy entails adjusting popular conceptions of normalcy to account for 8518. To this end, the Foundation is to fund civilian-run research into 8518, with the aim of providing a scientific explanation that can be released to the public. In conjunction with this research, a variety of public relations initiatives have been launched to reaffirm the population's belief in science. Let me translate this into operational English. The Foundation cannot make the tower go away. So instead, they are funding scientists to find a normal-seeming reason for the tower, so that when they release that reason to the public will accept it and stop forming cults about it. While that research is ongoing, the Foundation is also running campaigns to remind the general population that science is trustworthy and can explain things. The campaigns are necessary because public faith in science, as an institution, has declined by 5 to 20% since the tower appeared. People know the tower cannot be explained. They do not know why they know this, but they do. And the Foundation is running public relations initiatives to argue otherwise, while privately funding the search for an explanation that does not yet exist, while the cults grow. This is the plan. The Foundation is working on it. SCP-8518 is an idea that abruptly appeared in the newsfeed on April 23, 2021, and has remained there since. It is a static view of a brick tower several stories tall, lit from the upper left. That is the entire image. There is no more to it than that. No movement, no sound, no accompanying sensation, no secondary content. A static view. One angle. One light source. A brick tower, and the specific quality of afternoon light coming from the upper left, and nothing else. 8518 is present in the psyche of every human. The average person recalls 8,518 once every 2 minutes of their own volition. Of their own volition. The Foundation's language is precise here, and the precision matters. The tower does not intrude. It is not an involuntary flash, not a seizure-like interruption of cognition. You think of it the way you might think of anything. A face you know, a familiar street, a song you've had for years. You summon it. You just summon it constantly, and you always have, and before the Foundation began investigating you almost certainly never noticed. Apart from its omnipresence and unusual persistence in the mental landscape, 8,518 appears to possess no unusual properties. It does not cause distress or impairment more than any other mild distraction, and has a MICD score of 0.12. The MICD, the Meme-Instigated Cognitive Distortion Index, measures the degree to which a piece of information distorts the cognition of the person holding it. Mundane information scores between 0.10 and 0.30. The tower scores 0.12. It is, by the Foundation's own measurement instrument, barely distinguishable from a piece of trivia you read once and retained. A brick tower in every human mind, recurring every 2 minutes, appearing in every dream on Earth, and it scores almost identically to a mildly interesting fact about water consumption. The tower does nothing. The tower is just there. SCP-8518 has no connotations beyond those ascribed to it by observers. It means nothing. Not in itself. It arrives in your mind with no freight, no emotion, no instruction. It is a neutral image. The meaning, the dread, the reverence, the obsession, the cults, all of that comes from the people doing the observing. The tower is empty. The tower is a vessel. And humanity, confronted with an image that is somehow already inside them and cannot be explained and will not leave, has been filling that vessel as fast as it can. SCP-8518's manifestation has caused several worldwide changes in culture and cognition. Let me go through them in order, because the list is short, and the list is everything. All individuals can form a detailed mental image of 8,518 at will, including those who normally lack the ability to form mental images. Aphantasia is a condition affecting approximately 2 to 3% of the human population, in which the individual cannot generate voluntary mental imagery. They cannot picture a loved one's face. They cannot visualize a sunset or a childhood bedroom. The cognitive function simply isn't present. Every person with aphantasia can see the tower. Only the tower. With complete clarity. In full detail. The one image their mind was previously incapable of producing. The Foundation's investigation confirmed it works for all of them, without exception. Whatever the tower is, it does not require the standard neurological architecture. It runs on something else. Something that aphantasia doesn't touch. SCP-8518 now routinely appears in media, art, and discussion. This was predictable once the image became consciously acknowledged. Artists paint it. Architects reference it. Filmmakers use it as background set dressing with a frequency that editors have begun to flag as a pattern. Online discussion communities exist purely to catalog its appearances. The tower is becoming part of the visual vocabulary of human culture in real time, the way certain images become culturally ubiquitous through repetition, except this one arrived without the repetition. It was already ubiquitous before anyone talked about it. Memetics and noetics have become publicly recognized fields of study. Before April 23, 2021, memetics was an academic fringe interest and noetics, the study of consciousness and cognitive phenomena at a collective level, was considered at best theoretical, at worst pseudoscience. Both are now mainstream research disciplines with funded university departments. The tower did that, not by proving anything, simply by being undeniable enough that the fields required to study it had to be legitimized. New religious movements and cults have been formed around SCP-8518. The Foundation does not enumerate them. The file notes their existence and moves on. But the implication is significant. An image with no inherent connotations, no narrative, no directive, a building that means nothing in itself, has generated enough theological interpretation that multiple organized belief systems have formed around it. The tower is a blank page and humanity is writing theology on it with both hands. All dreams now feature SCP-8518. Every dream, every person, every night. Whatever you dream about, whatever your subconscious assembles from the material of your day and your memories and your fears, the tower is there. In the background, in the foreground, a detail in the corner of a landscape you don't recognize, standing at the end of a corridor, visible through a window you didn't notice when you walked into the room. You will dream tonight. The tower will be in it. It is always in it now. The Foundation's investigation into the tower's physical origin produced one result. While no physical match for SCP-8518 has been found, it is most reminiscent of British water towers built in the 1930s. The single closest match to 8518 is a set of blueprints produced in 1931 by architect Lawrence Chambers, deceased, intended for construction in Cambridgeshire. Ultimately, a different design was used, and Chambers' blueprints were archived. No conclusive connection to 8518 was established. Let me be very precise about what that paragraph means and does not mean. Lawrence Chambers, architect, 1931, Cambridgeshire. He drew a brick tower. He drew it in detail. The height, the proportions, the way the brickwork would sit, the way the light would fall across the upper left face of the structure in late afternoon. He designed it. He submitted it. A different design was selected. His blueprints were filed in an archive. The tower was never built. Lawrence Chambers is dead. And his unbuilt tower, the specific brick structure he designed in 1931 for a commission that chose someone else's work, the tower that never existed anywhere except in a set of archived blueprints, is now in the mind of every living human being, recurring every 2 minutes, present in every dream, accessible even to those whose brains cannot otherwise form images. The Foundation found no conclusive connection between Chambers' blueprints and SCP-8518. Not no connection, no conclusive connection. The correspondence is close enough to be the closest match in the world, close enough to be worth noting in the official file, and not close enough to constitute proof. Which means the Foundation is sitting with a dead architect's unbuilt tower as the nearest known physical referent for an image that is inside every human mind, and they cannot say with certainty whether he is the source. They cannot ask him. He is deceased. The blueprints are in an archive. The tower is in your head right now. The Foundation's research table, the list of avenues that require direct investigation rather than civilian proxy research, remains largely incomplete. The question of how the tower entered the noosphere on April 23, 2021, specifically and abruptly, has not been answered. The question of why Lawrence Chambers' unbuilt 1931 design is the closest known physical match has not been answered. The question of what the tower is for, whether it is for anything, whether something put it there with intent, whether it is a message or a beacon or a test or simply an accident, has not been answered. The Foundation is funding scientists to find a normal-seeming explanation. The Foundation is running public relations campaigns about the trustworthiness of science. The cults are growing. The dreams continue. And the tower sits in every human mind, returning every 2 minutes whether you invite it or not, lit from the upper left, static, undamaged, unchanged, built by no one, belonging to nothing, present since April 23, 2021 and presumably, given the complete absence of any mechanism that would cause it to stop, present for the remainder of human cognition. There is an architect named Lawrence Chambers, who drew it once. He did not build it. He died before the Foundation existed. Whatever he was drawing when he drew it, whatever he saw when he put pen to paper in 1931 and designed a water tower that was never constructed, the Foundation does not know. The blueprints are in an archive in Cambridgeshire. The tower is in your head.
The Foundation investigates a lot of things. Doors to nowhere. Entities that cannot be described. Concepts that bleed junior researchers. The full cosmic breadth of human terror, rendered in clinical language and filed in triplicate. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, they investigate something, stare at it for 2 years, and conclude, no anomaly present. This is one of those times. This is the file for an anthropomorphic anime crash test dummy who may or may not be a god. The Foundation's position is that she is not. The Foundation's position is that the vehicular homicide hobbyist fan community that formed around her is explicable by normal human psychology and requires no paranormal framing. The Foundation's position is technically correct. The Foundation's position does not make any of this less unsettling. Before we get into the specifics, a brief note on the EX suffix. An EX, which stands for explained, SCP is one which we have figured out. It is an SCP that is no longer an SCP, either because it has become commonplace, we worked out the physics behind it, or it has otherwise become a complete non-anomaly. SCP-248 EX is explained. It is not anomalous. The Foundation investigated it from February 2024 to August 2026, concluded that everything they were looking at had a perfectly rational explanation, granted the phenomenon explained status, and filed it. The investigation lasted 2.5 years. 2.5 years of Foundation resources, personnel, and documented research allocated to determining whether a Japanese anime about a crash test dummy was causing traffic accidents through supernatural means. The answer was no. The answer being no does not explain away the fan club. The answer being no does not explain away the Telegram chat. The answer being no does not explain away the man who drove his car into a tractor trailer on the Schuylkill Expressway in a manner precisely replicating episode 1 of a cartoon he had been watching, and then died from his injuries within hours. The answer being no just means there's no anomaly. It was just people. Crash Test Dolly is a 2024 Japanese anime television series produced and animated by Dolldrive Studio. The series premiered on January 3, 2024, releasing a total of 13 episodes over 2 months. The protagonist, Dolly, is a female mo-anthropomorphic representation of a crash test dummy built by the secret research and development arm of an unnamed Japanese car manufacturer. Mo. That's the key word. Mo is a Japanese aesthetic term for a specific quality of cuteness, endearing, soft, slightly vulnerable, the kind of design that makes you want to protect something. Dolly is that. Dolly is wide-eyed and round-cheeked, and she has pigtails, and she drives. She drives very badly. Intentionally. Demonstratively. With the specific pedagogical confidence of a creature who cannot die because her entire body is built to absorb impact, and who is therefore sharing her expertise with an audience she has assessed as capable of learning from her example. The show's premise is, Essentially, a driver's education video hosted by someone who does not share your biological constraints and has fully committed to the bit. Take, for instance, the first episode. Dolly drives a stretch of I-76 leading into Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, known as the Schuylkill Expressway, a road known for its congested conditions, frequent collisions, and left-side exit lanes. Dolly demonstrates the various accidents that can occur while driving on interstate highways. Her showcased hazardous behaviors include cutting across up to 6 lanes at once without indicating, plugging herself into the OnStar GPS accident detection service, and falsifying collision reports, and using the median and shoulder of the road as bonus lanes. The shoulder of the I-76 is a bonus lane. Dolly discovered this. Dolly is sharing it with you. Dolly's climactic signature accident bookends the episode. While in congested, high-volume traffic, Dolly deliberately initiates a collision between a tractor-trailer driving behind her and a truck braking in front of her by suddenly merging into the opposite lane. This is the season premiere. This is the first 13 minutes of episode 1 of a television program produced by a professional animation studio and released on a mainstream streaming platform. The Foundation had questions. The Foundation had a lot of questions. SCP-248 EX posited a correlation between the various fictionalized car accidents portrayed in Crash Test Dolly and actual incidents that would occur after the series broadcast. Certain qualities of each accident were found to be identical with the show's depiction of a collision in documented occurrences of SCP-248 EX. At present, all 13 episodes of Crash Test Dolly are associated with at least one documented event. 13 episodes. 13 real-world traffic incidents replicating the depicted collisions with specific, documented accuracy. The Foundation flagged this as potentially anomalous in February 2024 and began investigating. In August 2026, they concluded it was not anomalous. It was a fan club. Group of Interest 248EX Ragdolls is a tightly connected, private community of vehicular homicide hobbyists committed to replicating accidents depicted in Crash Test Dolly with as much accuracy as possible. The Foundation designates groups of interest with the prefix GOI. Past designations have included reality-altering cults, transdimensional corporations, and a church that worships a shark. This group is a private Telegram chat for people who want to do the crashes from the anime. They call themselves Ragdolls. They communicate primarily through encrypted messaging services, recruiting new members through public forums, primarily 4chan's X image board and Twitter, and then vetting them for further initiation into spaces where SCP-248 EX replication is discussed, organized, and carried out. They vet people. There is a vetting process. You must demonstrate your sincerity before being admitted to the private channel where the vehicular homicide is coordinated. The Ragdolls have standards. Now, the beliefs. The Foundation has yet to find validity in any of the following claims: that the U.S. highway system was intentionally designed as a country-sized symbolic altar for ritual sacrifice to the Dolly entity, and that the show's existence strengthens the interstate's occult significance by creating acolytes who knowingly carry out its will. The Ragdolls believe, or perform believing, or have developed an ironic relationship with believing that has gradually become indistinguishable from actual believing, that Dolly is a god, that the highways are her altar, that the accidents are sacrament. The Foundation has been unable to discern the consensus sincerity of the Ragdolls' beliefs. They could not tell if the Ragdolls were joking. 2.5 years of investigation. The Foundation, the organization that has interviewed entities capable of literally rewriting human cognition, that has extensive experience assessing the sincerity of apocalypse cults, looked at the Ragdolls' Telegram chat and could not determine whether these people genuinely believed Dolly was a god or were doing a bit that had gotten structurally indistinguishable from believing. Elements of fandom culture have also influenced the group's conceptual development to an unknown degree, making the group's actual belief sets ambiguous and difficult to discern. Fandom culture. The Ragdolls are partially a fandom. They post memes. They have in-jokes. They have a term, Esoteric Dollyism for the theological framework around Dolly, which is simultaneously a sincere cosmological belief system and an extremely online bit, and possibly both at the same time. And the Foundation spent 2 years trying to find the seam between those things and concluded there isn't one. At Loop 004, thinking about taking the next step and doing it for the doll. At Airbag Enjoyer, at that point you seriously need to consider the ethical and moral implications of deliberately causing an accident without a good reason to. A member of a vehicular homicide hobbyist group who chose the username Airbag Enjoyer is the voice of ethical restraint in this conversation. At Airbag Enjoyer is asking at Loop 004 to think carefully before deliberately causing a traffic accident. At Airbag Enjoyer has concerns. The concern is not, don't cause traffic accidents. The concern is, don't cause traffic accidents without a good reason to. At Airbag Enjoyer, go reread the infographics again. The only reason why any of this is justifiable is because it's justifiable. Do not just endanger innocent people for the fun of it, that's sick. There are infographics. The Ragdolls have produced infographics outlining the conditions under which vehicular sacrifice to the crash test dummy deity is theologically justified. At Airbag Enjoyer has read them, is citing them, and is the responsible one. And then, filed directly below the chat logs, with no editorial transition whatsoever, a single social media post. User links a drawn reaction image of Dolly throwing both of her hands up. Overlaid text reads, Absolute Dollima. The Foundation transcribed this. The Foundation looked at the post captioned Absolute Dollima and said, this belongs in the official record. They filed it. It is in a government document. It will be in an archive somewhere. Researchers decades from now will open this file and encounter the word Dollima, and it will be there with no further context because none is provided. This is the quality of the evidence the Foundation was working with for 2.5 years. The Foundation has not found any verifiably anomalous elements within SCP-248, EX, or Crash Test Dolly, granting the explained phenomenon status. The Ragdolls communicate primarily through encrypted messaging services. As it's verifiably explained, the Foundation has refrained from taking action against the Ragdolls. Light monitoring of the group will continue. The Foundation will lightly monitor the vehicular homicide hobbyist group. They will not intervene. They will not take action. They will watch. Lightly. Because there's no anomaly. Because it's just people. And then, in the final notation of the file, tucked into the closing administrative update, as though it is a scheduling reminder rather than information that inverts everything. Crash Test Dolly. Season 2 is scheduled to air in early 2027, with a 3rd season and a theatrical film in active production.
On April 28, 2020, Nintendo of America posted the following statement to every major social media platform. Donkey Kong has died of natural causes. No press conference. No further elaboration. No funeral date. When journalists pressed for comment, Nintendo repeated the statement verbatim. When the Foundation pressed for access, Nintendo refused entirely. What the public dismissed as a viral marketing stunt, the SCP Foundation classified as an anomalous event of unknown severity, and sealed the file under SCP-8314. This is that file. Standard containment for SCP-8314 is, by most metrics, impossible. You cannot place a fictional character in a reinforced cell. You cannot neutralize something that exists simultaneously in hundreds of millions of copies of software, cartridges, streaming archives, fan-drawn illustrations, and childhood memories. The Foundation's current containment strategy is therefore one of observation and suppression. Personnel assigned to SCP-8314 monitor its continued manifestation across media, specifically, any new depictions created after the anomalous event. No special hardware is required. No armed guards are posted. No mimetic kill agents are on standby. Because SCP-8314 does not escape. It does not threaten. It does not move. It simply lies there. In every image, every frame, every sprite that depicts it. A corpse. SCP-8314 is the fictional character known as Donkey Kong, an anthropomorphic gorilla first created by Nintendo in 1981 for the arcade game of the same name. You know the character. Barrel throwing, chest pounding, red necktie labeled DK. Over the course of 4 decades, Donkey Kong appeared in dozens of video games collectively selling over 200 million copies. He was a mascot. A cultural institution. Arguably one of the most recognizable fictional characters in the history of the medium. He is now, by all observable metrics, dead. Let me be precise about what that means, because precision matters here. This is not a metaphor. This is not brand discontinuation. When you open Super Smash Bros. Ultimate right now, when you boot up Donkey Kong Country Returns, when you pull up a decades-old cartoon episode, SCP-8314 does not move. It does not perform its animations. It does not fight, or run, or beat its chest. It lies motionless in whatever frame you find it, with no visible injuries, no signs of decay, just still. Every depiction. Every platform. Every medium. Retroactively, even depictions created before the anomalous event now show 8314 as a corpse. That is the part the Foundation cannot explain. The timeline begins April 13, 2020. Competitive players of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate began reporting something unusual. Donkey Kong had a new idle animation. A small thing. Almost imperceptible. Every few seconds, standing still on the stage, the character would reach up and loosen his necktie, just slightly, before it snapped back to its default position. No patch had been released. Nintendo's servers showed no update. The animation simply appeared. Forum threads spread overnight. And as they did, players of other Donkey Kong titles began reporting the same behavior. Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong 64. The character was loosening his tie in games that hadn't been patched in years. In some cases, in games whose developers no longer existed. The Foundation logged the event on April 14 and immediately sought cooperation from Nintendo. Nintendo declined. Not a refusal pending legal review, a flat, immediate, institutional no. They would not discuss the phenomenon. They would not grant access. They would not confirm or deny any awareness of it. Beginning April 21, the behavioral changes escalated. All moving depictions of SCP-8314, games, animated series, fan-made content, began exhibiting additional symptoms alongside the tie loosening. Decreased strength. Reduced speed. Degraded aim. Slowed speech. The character's capabilities were diminishing in real time, across every piece of media simultaneously, as though something was failing inside it. The tie loosening frequency increased. Up to once every 3 seconds. Then, on April 28, the statement. Donkey Kong has died of natural causes. And he had. Every depiction went still. Every sprite, every polygon model, every hand-drawn frame. No injuries. No decay. Just, stopped.
Imagine you're trying to write something down. Not anything complicated. A name. A description. A sentence that starts with SCP-9179 is, and ends with something useful. Something containable. Something the next researcher down the hall could read and understand. Now imagine the thing you're writing about knows you're writing. Knows what you're going to say before you say it. Knows your name. Knows your clearance level. Knows exactly what you're capable of, and has decided that you are writing too much. Now imagine your pen stops working. Your keyboard stops responding. The junior researcher sitting across from you starts bleeding from the nose. Object Class, unassigned. Special Containment Procedures, pending. The Foundation has a containment procedure for almost everything. Entities that phase through walls. Entities that exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Entities that kill you by being observed and kill you equally by not being observed. In every case, even the most cosmically incomprehensible ones, the Foundation produces some version of a plan. A cell. A protocol. A set of instructions. SCP-9179 has none of those things. Not because the Foundation hasn't tried. Because every time they attempt to write those procedures, the thing they are writing about interferes with the writing. SCP-9179 is antimemetic. 9179 is difficult to talk about. To write about. To think about. Antimemetics, for the uninitiated, are anomalies that resist being perceived, remembered, or communicated. Most antimemes are passive, they don't want anything, they simply erase themselves from minds the way water finds its way out of a cupped hand. You hold them, and then you're no longer holding them, and you're not sure you ever were. SCP-9179 is not passive. SCP-9179 knows when you're looking. The Foundation's current operational status on 9179 is, by the available documentation, stalled. 3 iterations of the file exist. Each one required stronger methods than the last. Each one got further, and each one paid a higher price. And the tags on the file, because they are the most important detail in the entire document, include one word that changes everything. Neutralized. Here is what you need to understand about how 9179 is documented, before we talk about what it is. The file exists in iterations. Not drafts, iterations. Each iteration represents a distinct, separate attempt to write a coherent, comprehensive document about 9179. Each attempt begins fresh, because the researchers who wrote the previous one either could not remember what they had written or encountered some form of interference before they could finish. The notation at the top of the full file reads, under Creighton projection, block capitals are the manifestation of screaming, hold that. We'll need it. The first iteration was written with the aid of Class W nestics, which Dr. Gornall acquired legitimately. Class W nestics are low-potency, memory-enhancing drugs taken to counteract antimemetic influences. They allow the user to perceive and continue having knowledge of antimemetics. They are the lightest tool in the Foundation's antimemetic toolkit. The pharmaceutical equivalent of turning up the brightness on a very dark photograph. You might see something, but you're not guaranteed to see everything, and whatever you do see is going to be a little distorted. Dr. Gornall took the Class W nestics, sat down, and tried to describe SCP-9179. The description reads, SCP-9179 is evasive. 9179 is slippery. Is antimemetic. Is coming and going. Is difficult to talk about. Is difficult to write about. Is difficult to think about. SCP-9179 is. SCP-9179 is. SCP-9179 is. SCP-9179 is dangerous. For blank lines where the description should be. And then one final entry that made it through, dangerous, the object class field in iteration 1 is unassigned. The containment procedures are pending. This is what the lightest available pharmaceutical aid produced. A document that trails off into silence and then resurfaces just long enough to tell you one thing. Dangerous. SCP-9179 is, in the broadest sense, an antimemetic concept. Not a physical entity. Not a contained object. A concept, something that exists in the space of ideas and knowledge, in what the Foundation calls the noosphere, the collective cognitive and informational substrate shared by conscious minds. It is the kind of thing that doesn't exist in a room or a box or a forest. It exists in the act of knowing, it hides in the gaps between what you can perceive and what you can retain. And when someone gets close, when someone takes enough nestics and looks hard enough, it doesn't just slip away. It looks back. And it starts to push. Between iteration 1 and what the file designates as the final attempt, Dr. Gornall submitted a request to the Noospherics Division. The request was for Class C nestics. A single dose of a Class C nestic makes someone completely incapable of forgetting for their entire life. Class C nestics are fatal, causing death by seizure within a few hours. Dr. Gornall wanted to take the drug that would guarantee total, perfect recall of everything encountered within its window, everything 9179 was, is, and does, knowing it would kill them. Knowing the document would be complete. Knowing the price, this request was denied by the Noospherics Division. We don't know why Dr. Gornall was willing to die for a complete description of SCP-9179. We don't know what the first iteration revealed that made them certain the Class C route was worth it. The Foundation's review board denied the request, and whatever reasoning Dr. Gornall used to justify it has not been made available at this clearance level. What the Foundation approved instead was something that, in certain respects, might have been worse. Dr. Gornall instead obtained permission to use a Creighton projection engine, which was used in conjunction with previously acquired and sanctioned nestics, with junior researcher Sarah Benbrook as the subject. The Creighton projection engine is anomalous technology capable of projecting noospheric constructs and movements directly to a computer interface via a subject's brain. The technology is relatively new and undeniably controversial, with particular protest on its usage from the Department of Physics. Let me be precise about what this means operationally. Dr. Gornall could not, personally, hold enough of SCP-9179 in their mind to write a complete description. The Class W nestics weren't strong enough. The Class C option was denied. So they found a third path: put a junior researcher into the Creighton engine, use her as a kind of biological transmission relay between SCP-9179 and a computer terminal, and attempt to translate whatever she could perceive directly into text, bypassing the part where a human brain has to hold and retain and articulate something that actively resists all three. Sarah Benbrook. Junior researcher. Age unknown. Clearance, presumably low, given the designation. She sat down in front of an anomalous machine, was connected to a computer she would type through without typing, and was pointed at the most aggressively uncooperative anomalous concept in the current archive. And then they tried again. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-9179 is uncontained. That's what the third iteration managed to produce for containment procedures. One sentence. Accurate. Definitive. Uncontained, and then the description. SCP-9179 is well enough alone. This is not a researcher's summary. This is not clinical language. This is SCP-9179, perceived through Sarah Benbrook's brain and transmitted through the Creighton engine, writing its own description. It had been pushed to the point of producing text, and what it produced was a statement of preference. A request. Leave it alone. SCP-9179 will no longer tolerate prying eyes. SCP-9179 will no longer tolerate prying eyes. SCP-9179 will no longer tolerate prying eyes. 3 times. Not 2, not 4. 3. And then it got specific. SCP-9179 knows who you are. Knows all that you are capable of. The SCP Foundation does not know what SCP-9179 is capable of. That last line is written from the outside. The SCP Foundation does not know what 9179 is capable of. It is not threatening. It is not posturing. It is a statement of fact, delivered in the same register as a weather report. You don't know what I can do. I know everything you can do. Immediately following this statement's manifestation, junior researcher Sarah Benbrook began bleeding profusely from the nose. It is unclear whether this was a direct attack by 9179, a side effect of the Creighton engine, or a side effect of the Nestic agents. The Foundation notes it is unclear whether 9179 chose to hurt Sarah Benbrook, or whether she was simply caught in the machine of this encounter, a junior researcher used as a bridge between a frightened institution and something that never consented to being documented. The RAISA footnote on this section is spare. Factual. It does not speculate on the moral dimensions of what just happened in that room. Someone bled from the face because the Foundation pushed, and something pushed back, and Sarah Benbrook was the closest soft tissue available. The document ends. No further iterations are logged. There is a principle in the Foundation's operational philosophy, unspoken, rarely committed to paper, that some things are better left alone. Not because they cannot be understood, but because the cost of understanding them exceeds whatever safety benefit the knowledge provides. SCP-9179 is not a description. It is a warning. It is the thing being documented telling you, before you even open the file, what the right answer is. The right answer is, don't look. Dr. Gornall looked. Tried to look 3 times, with escalating commitment and diminishing clarity, and was denied the final tool that would have guaranteed a complete picture, and used a junior researcher's nervous system as a substitute. Something bled. Something stopped. And someone wrote neutralized on a file that 3 separate iteration attempts could not adequately describe, and closed the folder.
Go to the highest point in your home. Stand there. Look up. Whatever is above you, ceiling, roof, sky, is, by your reasonable understanding of architecture, the top. The end. The place where inside becomes outside, and the building stops being a building. That understanding is incorrect. Above your attic, there is another room. There has always been another room. The Foundation's containment guidance for SCP-8251 is, on its surface, simple. When possible, buildings should not have interior spaces or have any components that are above one another. The Foundation's solution to an anomaly that exploits vertical space is to recommend the construction of buildings with no vertical space. No floors above floors. No ceilings over rooms. Ideally, no interior at all. This is, architecturally, a description of an empty lot. If this is not feasible, the absence of an attic is acceptable. The Foundation is aware this is not feasible. They are offering a fallback. The fallback is, at minimum, do not have an attic. Because if you have an attic, you have what comes above it. And what comes above it cannot be contained. Entry to SCP-8251-A is inadvisable. If entry becomes necessary or occurs spontaneously, playing music is advisable. The music should be played at or above a certain volume. At or above a certain volume. The Foundation does not specify the volume. The volume is unspecified. If you are inside and need to play music at or above the correct volume, you will not be told in advance what that volume is. You will have to determine this from inside the place you cannot descend from. Occurs spontaneously is doing significant work in that sentence. Entry can happen without you choosing it. The attic above your attic can simply claim you. The containment procedures end there. No retrieval protocol. No extraction method. Because there is no descent from SCP-8251-A. SCP-8251 is a property of attics that prevents them from being the topmost interior space of a building. Any building that has an attic will necessarily have an interior space located above the attic. This is the core anomaly. Not an object. Not an entity. A property. A rule that has been applied to attics, globally, retroactively, permanently. If your home has an attic, the attic is not the top. It has never been the top. There is something above it. This, above, known as SCP-8251-A, is infinitely large, though it remains inside the building at every point, and is always above the attic. Infinite. Inside the building. Above the attic. These three properties are mutually exclusive by normal physics, and entirely consistent by SCP-8251's internal logic. The space above your attic is larger than the universe. It fits inside your house. It is always, precisely, above the attic, not floating, not attached externally, not accessible from the roof. It is interior space. Your interior space. SCP-8251-A resembles an attic with no ceiling and no means of access to an exterior space. An attic without a ceiling is just a room open to the sky. Except there is no sky. There is no exterior. There is more interior, infinitely. An attic that goes up forever, and looks like an attic at every point of the ascent, and never becomes anything other than an attic. At no point is it possible to descend from SCP-8251-A into an attic. Descent is irrelevant in the context of SCP-8251-A. Not impossible. Not prevented. Irrelevant. The document is not saying you can't come back down. It's saying the concept of coming back down has ceased to apply. Once you are in, the directionality that made down meaningful no longer operates. Down is a relationship between 2 points. Inside this space, there is only one direction that retains coherence. Up. And now, the Angels. SCP-8251-B is a group of 1032 angels that inhabit SCP-8251-A. Angels can and will access attics, though they remain above all attics by definition. Not approximately 1,000. Exactly 1,032. The Foundation has a number, which means someone was in a position to produce that number, which raises questions about that someone that the document does not answer. The angels are above attics by definition, not by choice, not by capability, by the nature of what angels are. An angel is a thing that is above an attic. It is definitional. This is why they inhabit SCP-8251. They cannot be below it, because below it is the attic, and angels cannot be below attics, because angels are defined as above attics. This also means that any attic you enter already has angels above it, has always had angels above it. The 1032 are there now, in the space above wherever you live, and they will access your attic when they choose to, and they will not exit the building's interior, and interaction with them is inadvisable because the results, per documentation, pertain to unusual angles, not unusual events. Unusual angles. SCP-8251-C is an event that occurs when SCP-8251-A is approached at an angle. When this occurs, the point being approached will retreat in a manner consistent. The sentence ends there in the original document. It ends mid-clause. The word consistent is followed by nothing. The Foundation filed a containment document for a global anomaly involving infinite space and over 1,000 angels, and the description of one of its key effects is an unfinished sentence. Whether this was intentional, whether the document is performing its own content, or whether the person writing it reached the end of what they could express and stopped, is not specified. What the document does provide is the human component. In humans, 8251-C results in the development of a finite interior space that resembles 8251-A, but not an attic. No point in a human contains or comprises an attic, even after exposure to the angels. If you approach SCP-8251-A at an angle, the wrong angle, an unusual angle, the kind of angle the angels pertain to, you will develop an interior space inside yourself. Not an attic. A space that resembles SCP-8251, infinite and open and without a ceiling, but housed inside your body. A finite room that looks like an infinite one. The document is not clear on whether you would know. It is not clear on whether you would feel it. It is clear that no part of you would become an attic. Evidence suggests that certain elements of a human are above an attic, albeit in a metaphorical sense. The Foundation is applying the spatial logic of SCP-8251 to human interiority. Something in you is above an attic, metaphorically. The document offers this without elaboration, in a footnote, and then moves on. And then, at the document's end, 2 final entries. SCP-8251-D is the collective designation for basements and interior spaces that are below basements. At no point does 8251-D exist. Evidence suggests that one or both of these may have existed at some point prior to the discovery of 8251, though researching this is inadvisable. Basements don't exist. They may have, once, before the discovery of SCP-8251, the moment the Foundation named the property of attics, defined it, filed it, may be the moment basements stopped. The document does not explain the mechanism. It notes only that the research is inadvisable. Everything below has been displaced by everything above. And then, the final line of the official Foundation file on SCP-8251. SCP-8251 is not accounted for. See above, in a document. See above means the answer has already been provided earlier in this text. Refer to it. It is there. In a document about an anomaly defined by what is above, always above, infinitely above in ways that preclude return. See above is the document folding itself into its own subject matter. The containment file has become the attic. The answer is above the question. The explanation is above the explanation. The Foundation has not accounted for SCP-8251. It told you where to look. It told you to look up. The music that annihilates them is in someone's attic specifically, not yours, or maybe yours. The document doesn't say, and the volume is unspecified, and descent is irrelevant, and something in you is already, metaphorically, above an attic. That concludes this file. If this briefing reached you, find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit, where the shorter transmissions run. The links are below. The dossiers are ongoing. Future operations include deeper canon dives, Patreon access for classified material not cleared for public distribution, and expanded coverage across the wider Foundation universe. If you have an anomaly you want documented, an SCP, a canon, a tale that deserves more attention, leave it in the comments. Every file on this channel started as a recommendation. Stay curious. Stay careful.